Welcome to the Federal Leadership and Professional Development Seminar Series. This is our March seminar, and we had a little bit of a break with the holidays and the shutdown. So we're back in force. We've got the seminar today, and we have another one in 2 weeks. So starting off with a bang here. So just as a disclaimer, I just wanted to state that nothing in this seminar should be construed as an official position of AHRQ, HHS, or any other federal agency in general. So this series is a cross-agency seminar series on leadership and professional development. And we've got speakers from across the government talking to employees across the government at all levels. And I just started for this seminar to have an option for folks to put in their GS level just to see who are the attendees. And we've got the full gamut from the lowest GS levels up to SES. And that's really what this seminar series is meant for. It's meant for all federal employees. So the frequency of the seminars happen every 1 to 2 months, and they're free. There's no cost to attendees, and it's not a funded program, and there's no payment to the speakers. So the goals are to share federal leader expertise and lessons learned, provide free training since training resources are always limited, and also bring people together across the government and hopefully foster interagency connections, collaborations, and sharing. So that last goal there is one that I'm still working on. So I had mentioned during the last seminar that there is a plan to create a member database. So in the next month, you'll all be receiving, if you're on the seminar listserv, you'll all be receiving an option to become part of a member database via a survey. So if you are interested in doing that, please do fill out that survey, and then I'll be sharing the member database with the listserv. So right now we have about 3,300 people on the listserv, so there are a lot of folks across the government. So here are just a few quotes about how it's really been a valuable series so far, and valuable to have government leaders talking about and sharing things about their job in the government. So as I said, it's a federal-wide reach now. And then I mentioned the seminar series and the member database coming out of it. And one other thing about the survey that will go out, there'll also be a question in there about whether or not you all would like to help and volunteer, and there'll be opportunities to be part of a planning committee, suggesting topics and things like that. So as always, keep in mind what you're learning today, and at the end of the seminar, for the folks in the room, there's a leaf. You can write down your biggest lesson learned. Everyone will receive a survey at the end that will actually ask your biggest lesson learned and also give some follow-on discussion questions. So please do complete the survey. I'd like to also know how you liked it, if there's anything you'd like in the future, and any improvements that you suggest. So our next seminar will be on April 1st. It's going to be presented by Reginald Gant from Social Security Administration, and he's going to be talking about professional branding. Just going to leave the slide up here for a couple minutes while I do an introduction to the speakers. Here's my contact information on how to join the listserv if you'd like to receive future announcements, and also the link to the YouTube channel that has all the recordings since February of last year. So now I'd like to actually begin introducing the speakers. So we have 3 speakers today. So our topic is going to be the Employee Viewpoint Survey Analysis and Results Tool, or EVS ART, using EVS ART to unlock the potential of the FEVS. So first off, we have Camille Hoover, who is an active member of the SES and a 2017 recipient of the Meritorious Executive Presidential Rank Award. As the Executive Officer and Associate Director for Management for the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, or NIDDK, from National Institutes of Health, NIH, which is part of the Department of Health and Human Services, Ms. Hoover provides visionary leadership and serves as a principal advisor to the Institute Director and senior staff on all phases of management, including administrative, financial, and human capital management, computer technology, procurement, and ethics for an institute with an annual budget of $2 billion and a workforce of approximately 1,300. Ms. Hoover began her career as a social worker at Johns Hopkins Hospital and NIH. She then transitioned to an administrative career dedicated to building a bridge between administrators and scientists, and in creating lasting partnerships and providing critical support to NIH scientists as they conduct and support biomedical research to improve the health of the American people. Our second presenter will be Robin Klevins. She is a senior analyst at NIDDK. She serves as a senior advisor to the director, executive officer, and institute leadership on a broad range of administrative management issues, including strategic planning, organizational development, and continuous improvement initiatives, specializing in the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, FEVS. Robin has served as an advisor on issues related to SES reform and has played an active role in the creation and implementation of several key initiatives. She is currently on a part-time detail at HHS, where she leads the department-wide Reimagine HHS Maximize Talent Employee Engagement Work Group. Throughout her 18-year federal career, Robin has been instrumental in establishing and facilitating numerous cross-agency and cross-department collaborations. It is through these partnerships that she continues to focus on improving employee engagement and satisfaction, while developing process improvements resulting in cost-cutting efficiencies and improved data for decision-making. Robin is known for turning challenge into opportunity. Tran is our third speaker. She's a management analyst at NIDDK. She has a keen interest in linking analytics to strategic decision-making that positively impacts the world around her. V received her accounting degree from the University of Maryland and is currently pursuing her MBA at Hopkins University, where she is studying leading organizations. Her prior experience includes serving on an international board of trustees, overseeing 107 chapters in the global nonprofit Circle K International, and also working at PricewaterhouseCoopers as a management consultant. Please join me in welcoming Camille, Robin, and V.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. This is Camille Hoover speaking. And as we get started, I am just going to show you a picture of the three of us so you can see our team. Since you can't see our faces, you know who we are as we go forward. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today with you talking about the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. So let me start by just saying, as the senior executive for NIDDK, I consider it my responsibility to take care of the people of the organization and to make sure we create and sustain a culture where our employees can flourish, where they have the tools and resources they need to do their jobs, where creativity and innovation is rewarded, where there are standards and accountabilities, and where the environment is inclusive and respectful. And the EVS survey is a treasure trove of information about what the people of the organization think, where we're doing well, where we could improve, what you think of your supervisor, the organization. However, when OPM delivers this information to us, it is not in that format. And so we, over the years, had a lot of difficulty, as many agencies did, in really understanding what were the main themes and messages that we wanted to work on. So I turned to my colleague, Robin Klevins, a few years ago, and I asked her if she could help build a framework for us so that we could really understand the data. And while she was working on it, Tran came on board as well. And so together, what they created was actually a masterpiece. It is an extraordinary tool that brings to life the voice of the people. And so I'm going to introduce them now so they can come up and explain the tool. And then what we can do is I'll take you through how I use the analysis from the tool to implement strategic initiatives and targeted interventions and affect change from year to year.
Thank you, Camille. This is Robin Klevins, and I'm really excited to share our tool with you, but I wanted to start with just a few numbers to give you an idea of the impact of what an efficient analysis can actually have. Every year, EVS or the FEVS is distributed by OPM to full-time federal employees. Last year, it went out to about 1.47 million individuals, and almost 600,000 took part, each spending about 25 minutes to do that. So we spent almost $10 million just taking the survey. So it's really important that we use that information. In years past, it has taken us a couple of months to actually get the results from OPM. There's a lot of work that has to be done, a lot of sorting that has to be done. They deliver us the information, and then we have to work through it. And most analysts, I don't know how many of you have actually worked with the data, can spend anywhere from weeks to months doing that. And so by the time we get the information out to leadership to actually work with, we might be on the heels of the next survey. So people are taking a survey and then they don't see action because it takes us so long to get that information out. So we wanted to do something that would help people to get the information out that much quicker. Now here's the challenge. OPM delivers results, and they actually tell us what questions go into what key categories and index measures. They have a series of key categories and index measures already built in, but they don't deliver the information in that format. If you look at the screen, you'll see numbers and parens, and that indicates the number of questions that are in each of those categories. Now, each of those index measures has multiple subcategories. So you can see how actually working with that information and breaking it out can be a little difficult. Have any of you ever felt like that when looking at FEVS before? That was my life. And that led to the creation of the Federal or the Employee Viewpoint Survey Analysis and Results Tool, EVS ART. It's an easy to use Excel-based tool that only needs basic Excel knowledge to utilize it. It actually, it delivers information very quickly, but it also tells a story. So as an analyst, I want to get to actionable information. I have a little bit of an art background, so I wanted to make sure that whatever came through actually told a story, that themes kind of jumped out at the page at you. You didn't have to work too hard to see what your results actually really meant. And so that's what we did. I also wanted to make sure that you can do it in 5 steps and as little as 5 minutes. And we were successful in that. Now, mind you, a lot of us were spending weeks, if not months, doing this, and now you can get a full-fledged analysis in less than 5 minutes. So I'm going to go through quickly what the 5 steps are, and then I'm going to have Tran show you how the report looks once you're done. So it's literally entering your agency name, the names of the areas that you want to do analysis on, and the years that you're going to be doing the analysis on. So for instance, if you wanted to do a 2018 analysis and see how it compared to 2017, you can do that. If you want to do a 2018 to a 2015, you can do that as well. There's also a space for a custom message, and we like to put participation information there. A lot of times managers want to know if the information that they're receiving is reflective of their employee population. Did 50% take part? Did 75% take part? And we also add whether or not, or what the comparison is to the parent organization or the agency or government-wide. The next thing you do is copy and paste current year data and prior year data. You take the information that OPM gives you and you literally copy and paste columns and rows in the same order and put it into the tool that we have here. And then you hit refresh and the dashboard is activated. Everything you need to do is right here. Enter a little bit of information, copy, paste, hit refresh, and you have your full analysis. So I'm going to have V walk you through what the analysis looks like. And I think you'll be pleased.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. So as Robin mentioned, we fill in those 5 simple steps, and then what's created is a very comprehensive report. And one of my favorite parts of the report is the dashboard. On the dashboard, you're going to see some general information about the survey itself. A little bit below there, you're going to see a custom message that you put in. And a lot of times you'll see participation information that is useful for leaders that are looking at the report. And then below that, you're going to see a series of different charts. So you're going to see the highest positive scoring questions, the lowest positive scoring questions, the highest neutral scoring questions, the highest negative scoring questions, as well as the largest shifts, both positive and negative from one year to the next. A little bit below that, you're going to see this comparison heat map, and very quickly at a glance, you're able to see how the different parent organizations score in the index measures and key categories. So here you can see government-wide, department, agency, how the parent office scored in that particular sub-office, how it scored in the prior year. So here we can see 2017. And then what the difference was between, let's say, 2017 and 2018, or whatever 2 years you're comparing. Again, you can see the key categories, and the red colors are showing the challenges, while the green colors show the strengths that an organization has. So very quickly at a glance, you can see where your strengths are and where your areas for improvement are, but sometimes you might want to dig a little deeper. You might want to see the details. What questions do I want to improve on? So that's where our percent positive analysis, neutral and negative analysis tabs come into play. So if you look on the screen, you can see that we're going to go over the percent positive analysis tab. And at the top, you're going to see general information about how OPM scores the EVS results. Below that, you're going to see a conditional formatting key. So you can see here that questions that score below 65% are going to show up in this dark teal color. So it jumps out at you. These are areas that you may want to focus on a little bit more. Because OPM considers questions averaging 65% or above as strengths, so we highlight the questions that are scoring below 65%. And then you can see also that we have questions between 65% and 80% showing in this light blue color, and that's because we all strive to be more than just 65%, so you may have organizations where there are no questions that are below 65%, but you may still want to focus in on these. And then questions that are improvements from the previous year are going to be shown in this light green color, and questions that are declines from the previous year are going to show up in a light red color. As Robin mentioned, we break up the tool via indices and key categories. So for instance, here you can see the Employee Engagement Index, or EEI, a little bit of a definition below there, as well as the different sub-factors that make that up. So for instance, the Employee Engagement Index is made up of leaders lead, supervisors, and intrinsic work experience. On the right-hand side, you can see the averages for the different parent organizations for this particular index. And you can see that any question that is below that 65% threshold auto-populates to the box to the right. And so you can read through this and you can see if there are any themes developing. As Robin mentioned, this is an Excel-based tool. So in the tool, if you were to hover over any of these question numbers, you can see that the question text pops up. So if I were to hover on 11, I can see that that question says, my talents are used well in the workplace. So I don't have to keep referring back and forth between any two documents.
So I just noticed I have a few questions coming from online, so I just wanted to break in for a second and just read off a couple of these questions. So one of them is, can you compare more than 2 years at once?
So what I would recommend for that is we have the tool, and you can, in the example I gave, it was 2017 and 2018, but you can use any 2 years you want. So you can do 2015 data versus 2018, or 2016 and 2017. We also have other templates, such as the comparison heat map template that's separate from this particular tool, but is part of the suite of tools that you can put different years and compare them side by side.
And then we had another question about what is the lowest allowable number to get sub-office results?
So the minimum number of survey participants is 10 in order to get a report from OPM. And then the one last question here is, can we compare with other comparable agencies, small to small, medium to medium? Yes, so one of the tools that I spoke about earlier, the comparison heat map, you're able to compare different organizations to one another. You would just put their information in. and you would just want to make sure that you have access to their particular reports. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to continue. So this is the % positive analysis tab, and you can see we did this for the employee engagement index, but we also have this for the global satisfaction index and effective communications index and so on. The tool also looks at key categories. So here you can see that the questions 1 through 71 are broken up by key category. So for instance, questions 1 through 19 make up my work experience. Questions 20 to 28 is my work unit, and so on. You can see how the different parent organizations score and how that particular sub-office scores. And you can see that for every single question, 1 through 71. If you hover over any of these questions, you'll notice that some of these questions have a bolded number in parentheses next to it. So for instance, question number 11, my talents are used well in the workplace. It has a parenthesis 3 in it. And if I were to hover over it, I can see that there are 3 different areas that this question impacts. So if I was scoring really low on this question, I would really want to focus in on that a little bit more. And of course, we have our action plan tab in the tool. So what users can do here is they can identify their own focus area, or they can use one that OPM has designated. So they would fill that in. They would put any particular questions that they want to create or they want to use for this particular focus area that they want to focus on. This information, the question text, the positive, neutral, and negative percentages, they auto-populate in the tool. And then the user would be able to come up with initiatives and interventions, as well as which office or lead is in charge of this and when they expect to complete this particular initiative or task. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Robin to talk more about EVS arts and the impact that it has across government.
I just had one question I wanted to insert really quickly. So could you speak to the 2 other tabs, neutral responses and negative responses?
Sure, definitely. So the biggest difference between the neutral tabs and the negative tabs is that the conditional formatting is a little bit different, but the way that it is structured and the way that it's laid out is nearly identical to the % positive analysis tab that I just went over.
Okay, were there any other questions? So to kind of build on what V just said, if you are working with the neutral tab, if something is 30% or more neutral, that is an indication that you may want to increase or improve communications on the topic. And if something is 35% or higher negative, that's considered a challenge. So OPM has built in these indicators, and we have conditionally formatted the tool to match those. Okay, so we showed you the tool. It is really easy to use. It provides information very quickly and allows managers to begin working with it sooner to create employee-based initiatives. V mentioned that there is a need to have 10 or more participants in the survey before any individual area can receive their breakdown of data, but there are actually 28,000 opportunities across the federal government for those lower, deeper dives. So there are 28,000 organizations across the federal government that have 10 or more participants. So it's wonderful that that you can actually get this information now, because a few years ago, we were only getting like the higher level information. The closer you get to the front line, the more impactful the information and the change will be. So several of our colleagues are using, well, actually we've met with all 15 executive departments over the last year. Many agencies are using the tool, and some of the feedback we've received has been that it has created incredible efficiencies in the time and cost of doing this analysis. We have a colleague at NIH who used to spend 30 hours on a report, and now they do that same report, maybe even a little more robust report, in 5 minutes. So the cost of that one analysis went from $1,350 to $3.75. And there are 28,000 opportunities for that, which is pretty incredible. Our colleague at CDC used to spend 72 days to conduct 24 analysis, and now she can do that in 1 day. They went from about $30,000, $31,000 to about $1,100 to do their analysis. Because of the time saving, they have actually increased their reporting 6-fold. They do 150 reports now in less than a week. So that means 126 managers who were not receiving their specific information, their custom analysis, are now receiving it. We have a colleague at the IRS who shared that her analysis has gone from 200 hours to 40 minutes. So we regularly see a savings between 96 to 99%, depending on how detailed they had been doing previously. This has happened across the board, and managers are finding that they're actually able to spend more time using the analysis to create impactful change than actually doing the analysis, which is what we were kind of doing year after year. So Camille is actually going to talk to you about some of the work that she's done with the analysis that she's received. And I think a lot of it will probably resonate with a large majority of you. Were there any questions before we good?
We have some questions about how to access the tool and then where to find any sort of templates or guides on how to use the tool.
Sure. So the tool is actually housed on OMB's max.gov site. You'll find multiple templates on there depending on how deep of a dive you want to do. There's also training guides on a broken down step-by-step how to copy and paste and hit refresh, those types of things. So even if you are not familiar with Excel, you're going to be able to use this tool. And V has done a video training as well that's hosted there.
And there was one other question I just wanted to interject. There was a question about whether or not the spreadsheet can be saved as a PDF.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So we actually have saved the spreadsheet and merged them with other PDFs, but the report itself is actually used by a lot of people as the presentation when they meet with leadership. You go through the heat map, and then you can go through the deeper dives, and then you can work right into the action planning tab. Anything else?
Okay, so now I'm going to take you through some examples, and all of the examples that we're going to be showing are real examples that were either incidents that were at NIDDK or at other federal organizations. And if it's NIDDK, I'll tell you specifically. So the first example is not an NIDDK one, and this was when we were at an agency looking at the agency's organization and all of the optives, stafftives of that organization. And you can often hear leaders say, I just need the executive summary. I just want the highest level report and not all the details. And so if that was the case, and you saw this heat map here right now, and you look at the IC in red, you would think that this organization is doing really well because they look really well and mostly are green, and especially when you compare it to government-wide. However, in doing the heat map, if you look at all the sub-optives here, all of a sudden one stands out where there are actually issues. And this is actually a case where this organization and these scores are real. And in this case, the leaders were in the room. And so the leader in Office D said, wow, with the reports I got, I never realized that my organization wasn't doing well because I couldn't make sense of the data as easily as I can here. And second off, I see that my colleague in Office B is doing outstanding. And so I really could could utilize her help and find out what are the best practices that she's doing that are leading her to such a high-functioning organization. And the thing is, Office D, those scores were really diluted when you look just at the higher-level parent organization. And it isn't until you do the deeper dive that you actually can see very quickly that there's an issue. Another way you could use this tool, because instead of just looking at where is an organization maybe having issues, you could be looking across all your organizations and say, what is a theme across all the organizations that is going to be important for us to work on? And then you might want to have strategic initiatives that are going to be trans offices for the entire parent organization. And you see that here. You see that under this results-oriented performance culture, that those are the lowest scores in virtually every office. So it's just a way that you are able to, at a glance, be able to quickly see the areas that you would want to hone in on. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the organizations at NIDDK. So as you see here, this was one of the organizations that answered to me where there was some real issues. The scores were very low. I did not need to see this report to know that this organization had to be transformed and had a lot of problematic things going on. But the scores were good because it helped me to understand exactly how relevant the different areas were to the people of that organization. And over the year, I had very specific targeted interventions. And in this case, I actually the leader ended up moving on. We put in a different leadership structure so that there were several people that were going to be able to be in leadership roles and reach out to all the people of the organization. With those new leaders, we did training so that they had the competencies they needed to hold people accountable and to try to help heal the organization. We held all hands meetings so that the people of the organizations knew in real time the steps we were taking to try to improve and to hear their voice in real time as to how we were doing and how we could improve. And we kind of leveled the playing ground so that we made sure it was a fair environment where people understood expectations and how they were doing. And in the course of just 1 year, these were the score changes, and you can see that they are quite remarkable. This is still the lowest scoring organization in NIDDK, and they still are in the process of transforming. But I was able to use this tool to, in fact, see that the targeted interventions and the different resources that we were putting into trying to help this organization were moving in the right direction and very successful. And some of these differences are quite remarkable to be from 1 year to the next. I'm going to give you another example. So looking across the entire organization, and this goes to where I was saying, are there some themes for the whole organization? And so for NIDDK and in the EO area, these were the themes that we developed. These were our lowest scoring questions, and we're doing really well, but we still need to improve. And as V said, nobody strives to be a 69 or a 76. We all want to be 100 and be better than 100 and do our best in our organizations and know that they are thriving as best they can. So we took these different areas, and over the course of the year, we put in place a lot of strategic initiatives. So I just want to talk about a few of them. So one is based on this question, creativity and innovation are rewarded. And so over the course of the year, we looked at what were the ways that we were rewarding people. And so most organizations have like a director's award ceremony where you get a director's award, you get maybe a mentor award. So we went out and we benchmarked across many organizations, what did their programs look like? And ultimately, we created a new award, which was called the Innovation Award. And this is our director with the first recipient of that award. And looking across the organization at all the novel ways they were rewarding people, I also discovered some really cool awards. One was called the Rising Star Award, and the other one was called the Core Value Award. And on the EO side of the house, we talk about rising stars. What does it take to be a star? How anybody, no matter what walk of life or educational background, can be a star, and what are the factors that go into that. And then we also talk regularly about what our core values are. So although that wasn't an award, neither of those were really awards for the bigger institute, they were perfect awards for me to give out at an all-hands meeting once a year to the EO staff. So the EO staff is about 120 people. So it was a different way of being able to recognize people in a novel way. We also tried to make sure that the way we were vetting and considering awards was done in a fair and rigorous way. And we still this question is still one that we are working on. And we are right now going out with just using gift cards. We haven't used gift cards in years for many reasons. But as I've talked to the people of the organization about what are other things we can do, it's become clear that that little gift that might only be $20 or $25 can make a difference, and that would make them know on a day-to-day basis when they're doing good. The next question, supervisors in my work unit support employee development. So this was another one of our lower scoring questions, and we have many things that we are doing, and we made sure to look at how could we even invest more in the people of the organization. So we had a lot of people coming in from the outside, a lot of people new to federal government, so we created a developing professionals cohort, and it was bringing people in from all the different areas, but they were all brand spanking new to government, and we helped to teach them what's important to know as a new federal employee. What's important to know to be able to be successful? What are some of the tools that are going to help you manage your career as you go along? And then they also had now a community of people like them. They were all brand new that they could find support from. We also put in place a coaching pilot program so that we could provide coaching to our staff at all levels and not just the very highest levels. We have created a formal mentor program, so everybody knows how important it is to be able to have mentors, and it doesn't matter how senior you are, you need mentors. But a lot of people don't know what to do with that and how to actually go out and find a mentor. So we decided to create a framework to put in place a program. People, submitted their nominations to be part of the program. We taught them about what you would look for in a mentor, how to have those interviews, what should your expectations be on the mentor and the mentee. And we're just about to graduate the first program. And people really have found it successful because it helped launch them and help them to know how they really could make it a reality. And there's a picture to go with that. The next question, I went too fast. In my organization, senior leaders generate a high level of motivation and commitment in the workforce. So this question gets to how are we communicating with the staff? And the higher up you go, the less direct involvement you have with your staff. So we tried to put lots of things in place to make sure that they were in touch with the senior leaders. When I have workshops and retreats, we do something called a World Cafe, where we bring in some of our most senior leaders, and then the employees can spend 10 minutes with the leader going over questions about their careers or resilience or whatever, and then you move from table to table, and you get to meet the senior leaders and understand that they are human beings just like you. We also have the Administrative Speaker Series. So we're a science organization, and our scientists come in and do a seminar, but they do the seminar in a language that's a little bit more plain so that we can understand what their science means. And then they always integrate into that how the administrative side of the house is really important and supportive in their ability to reach their goals. I meet with all new employees as the executive officer to welcome them, to make sure that they know we want to make sure that their careers are going to get off with a good start, that they're getting the things that they need. So we do a lot of things like that in order to just make sure that people have time with the senior leaders in the organization. And last but not least, this question 41, it's one of the lowest scoring questions across government. I believe the results of this survey will be used to make my agency a better place to work. I mean, I think this year, 2018, the score for federal government-wide was 41%. Well, we have spent an enormous amount of time on this, and what we believe to be true is you can't just talk about EVS when you're trying to get people to participate in the survey, and you can't just talk about it when the survey results come in. We make sure that on a daily basis, we are trying to integrate the voice of the people, and whenever we have initiatives that come out, whenever we have new programs, anything that was in part created because of the voice of the people, we always name it. And we have this campaign, you spoke, we listened, this happened. And what we're doing now, we're shifting the campaigns ever so slightly as we're getting ready for the next survey. And that's going to shift to you speak, we listen, things happen. So year-round, you need to be understanding the voice of the people. You need to be hearing the voice of the people. And actually, when you think about EVS, it just goes to the FTE portion of your organization. Half my organization is non-FTEs. So it is a start. It's still a wonderful way to have your finger on the pulse, but what you need to do from there is find other ways to engage the entire community with the themes that you're hearing and the voice that they're speaking, and then do more to get input. Some people do pulse surveys. We are just rolling out as a pilot an ideation tool so that we can learn from the people of the organization what they think on certain questions. And there's many ways to do it. The main thing is that you do it year-round. Okay, and so this is just showing you here from the year before. You can see that in all these areas, our scores went up quite well. And so I also knew from this tool that we were targeting things in the right direction and that they were making a difference. This was validation for us. Just very quickly to talk another way about you could use the EVS tool. So at HHS, they were doing this reimagined strategic planning initiative, and so they wanted people from across HHS to provide input. And then when they would get input, they would send it back to the organization and say, hey, we're hearing about this, especially if it was something that was a complaint. So a note came back to NIH saying that there was a complaint from someone that said the extramural community at NIH was problematic. And so what we didn't know is that smoke where there's fire, or is that someone that's disgruntled? Because it's just one piece of information. But I turned to Robin and V, and I asked them to put something together for me. And if you look at what just turned in red on this heat map, those are my 4 extramural divisions. So I asked them to take the extramural divisions, and then I asked them to go to these different measures that were related to leadership. And when we looked at them, I could tell that my organization was not having problems at all. I had very high scores. As a matter of fact, my scores were way higher than HHS. So it was a way to validate, did we find anything? Here again is another measure for my extramural divisions, and it's under my leadership. And you see, I have 90s. Our people were scoring in the 90s, which is quite remarkably well. So this was one way to at least look at data that we already had from the voice of the people and learn if maybe there was something there that I had not seen in the past. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Robin, unless you have any questions. Okay, good.
Okay, so it's amazing what you can do with good information and how well-informed actions can lead to such a positive reaction. And this is a good kind of snowball effect that we've been seeing happen all across government. So we're really excited about that. Now, someone had asked earlier how you can access EVS art. We do have a site on max.gov, and it has all of our templates. It has training, and it has a video training on there as well. You can also sign up to receive updates, like when something on the page is changed, and that's really important because for 2019, we're going to be creating some additional enhancements. We're going to add some new employee engagement indexes for drivers, and we're also going to add some additional information on work-life balance, which is something that people have been asking for the last couple of years. So we're excited about that. And that's really all I have right now. I don't know if we have any questions out there or want to start a question and answer session.
Let's start with the folks in the room first because they've been very quiet. If you could use your microphones in front of you, just be sure to press the button to talk and then press it again when you're done. And please announce your name and which agency you're from.
Hi, I'm Laura Gent with HRSA, and I have a question about the survey, and if you all try to address this up front. Sometimes there's confusion about like the work unit, like which unit are you part of? Because, I mean, you all talked about your individual divisions, but sometimes we have like units within larger units, and you're taking the survey, and so I'm not sure we're answering consistently.
So the smaller organizations or areas roll up to the larger organizations, but if any organization has 10 or more, you're able to pull out that information and do a separate analysis for that area. So it all depends on how your agency submits their information to OPM. For us, it rolls up based on the administrative code that the organizations are in. If you have fewer than 10 people, your information is still counted. Your surveys are still in play, but they just roll up to the next largest organization. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you.
We have one question online asking whether or not the tools are actually downloadable from max.gov.
They are, and that's how we prefer that you work with them. You don't want to save anything to max.gov. You want to actually download the tool and name it for your organization. You know, there's a neat trick that we try and do for some of our larger organizations. When the government-wide information becomes available, we populate that in the tools for you. OPM asks us to hold it for a little while until it's made public. So we'll actually upload the government-wide information to all of the templates before we put the new templates up. And then what we normally do is we'll put the HHS information and share it with HHS so that when they distribute it, all of their organizations already have those 2 levels in there. And then for NIH, which is the agency we're a part of, we'll put the NIH information in there. So by us doing those 3 little steps, we're saving hundreds of other people from doing that same 3 steps. So if you are part of a larger organization, if you can fill in the parent organization information before you send it to the sub-organizations to work with their data, you're going to save a lot of time. You won't be duplicating efforts, which is really nice. Any other questions?
Actually, I had one question about taking the slide back to the list of agencies. Is that what you said?
List of agencies? Oh, that's actually a breakdown of some of the offices within NIDDK. Did someone have questions about that?
No, I think they just wanted to see that slide again. And then if we can move on to the discussion questions, we have some great discussion questions lined up.
Okay, so we have a few discussion questions. I don't know if we want to start here in the room or if you want to do this online. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. What is an example success story in which your agency has used FEVS data to overcome challenges and make lasting improvements?
I see some folks are typing. People in the room are being very quiet. And has anyone in the room actually experienced their agency using FEVS data to make changes? Raise your hand if you have. And I see Mary reaching for a mic.
I sincerely apologize for being late. I was coming from another meeting. So let me see if I can understand. I don't mean to misunderstand exactly what the intent of this session was, but are you suggesting that you can take agency data and do analyses, because you are part of NIH, but we have a research team that, I work with federal employee EVS. We do get data like this on the various elements of the Viewpoint survey. So are you saying that in lieu of that you would be able to do the same thing? Are your services available for all agencies, even if they have resources within their agency, regarding how do we make change? Because we have taken that data and tried to effectuate change for the better.
Absolutely, and we're not, so what we are doing, we are feds who have created an extraordinary tool that has a remarkable impact, and we are gifting it as broadly as we can to to all the sister organizations out there. And then what we showcase today is in using this tool, which in 5 minutes gives you this entire report in 5 simple steps, you don't have to spend weeks and months doing the analysis because the reports you get tells the stories of the people of the organization so that you and your leaders can spend their time working on what are the strategic initiatives, what are the targeted interventions, and then using this tool, you will be able to measure from year to year if your efforts are in fact affecting change. So that's what, and so what I have provided today is a lot of just the novel and creative things that we do at NIDDK to try to affect change. And we sometimes have organizations and agencies, many times they want to discuss with us the dimension of what are things you can do, not just the tool, but we're not out here to start marketing ourselves to intervene with your organizations. We actually have full-time jobs. This is on the side. By the way, this is not any of our regular job duties.
Good,
Does that help?
Yes, it's a wonderful service. I'm very pleased to hear about this. But I just had a question. Are you able to do trend data from several fiscal years? Fiscal year 2016, 2017,
Yes.
2018?
Yes.
So if I were representing HRSA, were to
Yes.
say, you can actually go into our agency and actually pull the data and do the analysis that
Yes.
you've so kindly presented here.
Right, it's the same data.
Yes.
So you have a person,
Yes.
Tim George at HRSA, who has
That's
his own
Tim.
tool, and he does whatever he does.
Yes.
We are using the exact same data. Everybody's getting their data from OPM. You get a
Yes.
report, and your data is the same data that we're putting into our tool. It's just showing the information in a different way.
So perhaps maybe Tim George is maybe not necessarily giving us data. You are providing another spin or different data points
No.
that he may not be presenting?
So what we have done is we have taken, and if, we can talk to you afterwards, we have developed a framework using OPM's measures and indexes. And based on that, we created a tool, and the raw data that Tim gets is the same raw data we get, and we're just portraying it in our tool differently than he portrays it in his tool. So he could use his tool, you can use his tool, but you have to have access to the OPM data.
Great, thank you very much.
It's the same data, just showing potentially differently. The
Yeah.
other thing I'll tell you is, and this gets back to your question, we have been gifting this for about 1.5 years, and through that service, we actually were invited to Federal News Radio. And so when we did that, we through that process, we met a White House fellow cohort who was working with EVS data. And so we helped them out. They introduced us to OMB. And when we met with OMB found our tool remarkable. They said that what I was able to demonstrate was proof of concept of something they had been trying to demonstrate for more than 7 years, that you can look at data, you can actually do strategic initiatives, targeted interventions, and within 1 year see remarkable improvements. So based on that, they've been our biggest champions. We've now met with all 15 government agencies. We've had more than 50 meetings. I now am the co-chair of the Employee Performance, Improved Employee Performance and Engagement. This is a government-wide President's Management Agenda CAP goal, cross-agency priority. It's part of the workforce for the 21st century. It's a big blah, blah, to say all that, but it's remarkable. And now we actually have a platform where we are out there working with agencies across the country on ways that we can help employees improve and have engagement. So
we,
you got to be, she wants to ask.
I just want to break in for 1 second because we did have some responses, and I wanted to get, also there were a lot of comments online. I just wanted to say that one response to the question, what is an example success story in which your agency used FEVS data to overcome challenges and make lasting improvements? Shirley mentioned that they use survey data, which replicates FEVS, and they look each year to identify areas of concern. One prominent example that they found was differences between Washington-based and foreign country-based employees, and they ended up focusing on this disconnect, and the scores have risen for overseas employees. So there are some other examples here. I just wanted to list that off, and we have a lot of other questions. I want to say we just have 5 minutes left just to give a time check-in, but I know Robin wanted to make a comment quick.
No, I just wanted to say, I know you had mentioned Tim's tool. There are other tools out there. The only thing that's different is that this is something that anyone can use. You don't need a license for it. We're gifting it, and as long as you have access to the OPM data, you can pop it in and you can utilize it. So there are other good tools out there.
Right.
This one's free, and it's easy to use.
There was one comment saying that a lot of folks will want to know what are some ideas for initiatives that have been successfully implemented to make an improvement. A list of these best practices by EVS questioned would actually be very impactful. And that really gets back to that first question that's basically stating the same thing. When you all leave today, you're going to receive a survey automatically, and that question is in there. And I will share the answers with everyone. So if you could please do fill out the survey. And if you do have examples, that will be very useful for folks.
And to add to that, so we just had our sub-goal meeting yesterday for the PMA committee that I lead. And one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about is we are out there trying to find out about what are all those grassroots efforts and what are all the bright spots. And every agency has bright spots and best practices, but they're often so far below that when you're just dealing with the policymakers across agencies, you're not even able to get to them. So one thing that they asked us to do at yesterday's meeting, because we have different milestones that we have to work towards, is that we want to create a community of practice and put together a listserv that can have regular dialogues and be sharing what those best practices are and what are the bright spots and what are some of those novel interventions. At NIDDK, we're doing it all the time, but not everybody has the benefit. And so, different organizations have different amounts of resources and different amount of people that have passion, because what most of these novel things, they're being created by passionate people who don't need a lot of resources. You're just coming together with the people that really care and trying to create interesting things. So that will be coming out soon, this community of practice, and I will be happy to share that information with Kim. And if organizations have bright spots and really novel, creative things that are best practices, as the sub-goal leader, I would love to hear about it and potentially be showcasing it for all of government-wide.
And we did have a couple other questions. One was about the heat charts, the heat maps, and if you could explain the scale or logic that's used for the red versus green.
Okay, so OPM has designated 65% as a strength, and like we said, we don't think 65% is really indicating a strength, but anything that is below 65% is red on the heat map. And so it will gradually increase to green when you get to 100%. So anything in between is going to be falling between like the 65 and 100%.
Yeah, just to add to that, it just so happens NIDDK is a very high functioning organization, the highest functioning at NIH. And when you look at our heat map, everything is green. So our director just the other day asked Robin and V if they would change the measures because we're not able to use it in a way that you can still see what are the most low scoring. This map goes by the OPM, and there are a lot of organizations that are really low scoring, but there's a lot of really high scoring organizations as well, so it can be adjusted for that.
Okay, any other questions in the room?
Kim, I just wanted to comment that indeed OPM has a 65% benchmark. HRSA for a little bit had 80%. So maybe raising that benchmark, you might see maybe a little bit more yellow in yours. But it turns out everyone seems to be using the OPM benchmark at 65%.
Yeah, if you look at our tool, I know you came in late, but what you'll see is that in the deeper dive, the dark blue is indicating what OPMs are, but we've put a different color in up to 80% because we have a lot of scores that are actually 100% in our organization. So it is different. And who in this room strives to be 65%, right? So we, want to keep making sure that you strive for better. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting today. And I can't tell you the number of comments that I've seen saying how wonderful the tool is and how excited people are to use it. So I think this has been really helpful. And thank you all for coming today and all the folks online. I know there were some connectivity issues today, which is a new issue. There seems to always be one surprise from the IT world out there. So I do apologize for the folks who had to log back in. But I hope you all enjoyed the seminar, and I will be posting the video in about a week, and I'll be sending out the link to that as well as a December one with a shutdown. I hadn't sent out the link yet to the previous seminar, but as I said, our next one is coming up on April 1st, so very quickly. So please do look out for that email. If you're on the listserv, you'll be receiving an email with the registration code for that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.